Good morning, student. I am here with the topic how do organisms reproduce. Today we have to discuss about the plant reproduction. So earlier we were also discussing about the plant reproduction, and we will proceed in this topic only today. So in the previous class we had discussed about the pollen grains and the ovules. Now here I will explain you that how does the pollen grain lands on the flower. So what happens, the pollen grains, it lands on the stigma, and when it get its appropriate or correct stigma, then it's the pollen tube. There are two nucleus present in the pollen grain is binucleated. One is the generative nucleus and one is the tube nucleus. So as it lands on the stigma, the tube nucleus starts forming the pollen tube, and from there the generative nucleus later on divides into two cells. Okay, it divides into two gamete cells. This division takes place in the pollen tube before reaching to the female gamete. Now here you can see the parts of the ovule. In the ovule you can see the nucleus, egg cell is there, synergids, one pair is there, polar nuclei is there, and antipodal cell is there. These synergid cells, it helps the pollen tube to give the proper direction so that the gamete cell can the egg cell. Polar nuclei, it forms the endosperm after formation of the zygote. It forms the endosperm. And antipodal cell, it provides nourishment to the egg cells for the proper fusion. Okay, so these are the functions, and this is the structure of a single ovule. So in a single ovule there is one egg cell, two synergid cells, two polar nuclei, and three antipodal podals are there. So these antipodals also raptures after the cell division, raptures after the fusion of gametes takes place. That means the zygote formation takes place. Nuclei forms the endosperm which give nourishment to the zygote and helps in the further division in embryo. So zygote divide to form the embryo, and endosperms keep on supplying it with the nutrients. Pollination, it is the transfer of the pollen grain from anther to the stigma is called pollination. There are two types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination, when pollen grains get transferred to stigma of a same flower, then it is called self-pollination. Means pollen grains flower to the stigma of that flower only. Cross-pollination, when pollen grains of other get transferred to the stigma of another flower, is called cross-pollination. That means if the pollen grains of one flower is going and sitting on the stigma of another flower, then it will be termed as cross-pollination. Pollinating agent, one which help in pollination, is termed as pollinating agent. So pollinating agents are insect, wind, and water. So they also play a very crucial role in the sexual reproduction of the plants. So upper part will become the shoot system, and the part which is of white color and move downwards, it becomes the root system. Okay, so plumule, it becomes the shoot system, and the radicule become the root system. In this way the germination takes place. But whenever there is the germination, if it is a monocot, there will be a single seed leaf. If it is a dicot, there will be two seed leaves. So let it be this much for today. Rest of the things we will discuss in the next class.